Hi everyone, welcome back to another video in the 0 to 100k 2023 KDP challenge. In this video, I'm going to be showing you all of May's results. I'm going to be showing you our profits, all our ad spend, and sort of how the month went in general. So if you remember, at the end of April, we had 9 books live on our bookshelf, and actually over the course of the whole month of April, we didn't publish a single new book. That's because we were coming on our travels, it was all quite new, but that has very much changed in May. We've settled into a routine, and we actually had a really good and productive month. So that means that in May, we published 4 new books, so our bookshelf has gone from 9 all the way up to 13. Now, of course, this is 13 paperbacks, so to go alongside these, we do also have 13 ebooks. So in total, we have 26 different versions of books selling, and hopefully in the future, we can have a couple of audiobooks and stuff when we start to venture into the high content. So each time, we can open 2 or 3 different income streams. And of course, as our bookshelf is growing, it has really helped us to increase our royalties because we just have so many more different types of books that we can be getting sort of reliable sales from each time. And as you'll notice later on in the video and from the past videos, pretty much all of our books do consistently sell at least some copies each month, but of course some books really are taking off more than others. That brings us to the most interesting part of the video, and that is of course what were our royalties for May of 2023. So this is just over 4 months of publishing on the new account. Now if you remember last month the royalties were just over $1,200, and luckily this month we've absolutely eclipsed that, selling just over $1,800 for about a $600 gain from the month before. Now these are the sort of increments that we are looking to sort of increase by month on month, so that means that this month we are hoping to sell about $2,400, $2,500, but we're really happy with this sort of $1,800 mark, and as you'll see later on, the profit margins are starting to just go up and up as well. Now you'll notice here on the right that it does say all 14 books, but that is because I'm recording this video sort of in the first few days of the next month where we have published a new book. So throughout sort of the end until the end of May, we had 13 books live on our KDP account. Here we have our graph for the month. So as you can see, sales were fairly consistent throughout the whole month with no days sort of getting below about $30. But we do have this one absolute spike here on the 23rd of May, which was a pretty crazy day where I think we sold $176 worth of books. But as you can see here, it's a pretty great spread. We haven't got lucky particularly on too many days. Every single day we're selling a consistent amount, and hopefully this graph is sort of slightly trending in an upwards direction so that we can start selling a little bit more in June this month. Now, as you saw from that graph, May 23rd was an absolutely crazy day. I'll correct myself here, we sold just over $174 just from that one day, and I know we sold 46 copies of books. But one thing I will say about this day, that it was slightly an anomalous day because we sold, I think, about 22 copies of one type of book and 15 copies of another type of book. So it must have just been 2 bulk orders randomly happening on the same day. But it is absolutely great because we sold, $174 in one single day on an account which has only been running for 4 months. So hopefully, these are going to be numbers that are going to be much more regular and more consistent later on in the year and as we get to Q4. But I certainly did not expect to be having a almost $200 day, just 4 months into this new account. So that is absolutely great. And I can promise you, going into the next month, into June already, we're regularly getting triple-figure days. So hopefully this is going to become something pretty normal. Here we have the breakdown of the sales. So as you can see at the top here, 1,808 total royalties in dollars. Of that, we sold $71 or nearly $72 in ebooks. But of course, these books are all sort of medium content style books, so they're not generally going to sell best in ebooks. And I'm pretty happy with us even getting sort of 3-4% or whatever it is of our sales in the ebook format. As you can see here with the print royalties absolutely dominating. And then we did get nearly $9 in Kemp royalties. So that is when people read pages of your book without actually purchasing it. Amazon gives you a couple of cents per 10 pages or whatever it is. It adds up over time, but the majority of our sales, of course, are coming in the paperback format. Now, one thing you will notice this month, which really does stand out, is that one book has absolutely smashed it, getting about 40% of all of our sales. Now, this is the same book that did really well last month, but last month it sold about $470, and this month it's gone all the way up to $744, which is absolutely crazy for one book. Now, however, that book is doing extremely well. The rest of our books were still performing pretty well, to be honest, and we have sort of 3 or 4 of these books really smashing it, all earning well over $100 per month, with this book in number 2 earning $373 per month. Now, this is one of the books that sold 22 copies in one day on May the 23rd, so that has obviously skewed the results slightly, and that was about sort of $75 in one day just from that one book. But other than that, it was still performing sort of very, very consistently, very steadily, selling at least 1 or 2 copies every single day, and sometimes selling up to sort of 5 or 6. And now we have these other sort of 2 or 3 books here that are performing very well, selling over $200 here, nearly selling $200 for this one. Now, these 4 books are all books that have been on the account for at least 2 months. with this book here, the $187 one, being the very first book I believe that we published on this account. So this longevity of them being on the account has allowed them to, sell slightly more. And with some of these books down here, they are the newer ones which are taking a little longer to find their feet. And I found one thing with KDP at the moment is that it does just take a little bit longer for books to regularly start selling and to start to sell the amount that they really deserve to sell. Back in 2019 and 2020, you could publish a book and you could expect sales almost straight away, and you could almost expect the book to sell as well at the end of the first month as it would in 6 months' time. But things seem to have changed slightly, and it does seem to take books at least 1 to 2 months before they start to hit that sweet spot of where they actually sell the correct amounts compared to what they really should be selling. Now, of course, one big factor of that is having reviews, and our sort of books that have been on there for 3-4 months, they are starting to get very good reviews now, and a lot of them are up sort of 10 plus reviews, and all of them are at 4.5 or 5 stars. So of course that is helping, and our newer books on our account, they have sort of 0, 1, 2 reviews. So it does take time for these to build up and for the customers to have trust and faith in your book. But that aside, it does just seem to take books a little longer to start performing. So these books here, I'm expecting some of them to really climb up next month, because we have published a few books which are starting to get some good bestseller ranks and which are starting to sell regularly. And these are the ones here that are selling sort of $79, $58, $32. They're all very new books. So hopefully next month they can climb into the triple digits and start really contributing to some big numbers. Now, I have just included the top 10 best-selling books here, because or else the text would get a little small, but we do also have 3 other books which sold less than $26. I think the lowest one sold about $6, and then the next one about $15, and the next one about $20, so they're not really contributing too much to the total, but they are still regularly selling at least a couple a month, and they will start to add up over time. May was also the first month where we finally got that coveted orange bestseller tag on one of our books, and unsurprisingly it was the book which sold well over $700. Now, if you don't understand what a bestseller tag is, or if you don't know what it is, it means that you are the #1 best-selling book in your category on Amazon. So Amazon puts all of their books into loads of different categories, and if you are the best of all of them, they give you this little orange tag here, which hopefully makes more people buy it. Now, our book did sort of get this tag on about day 5 of the month, and throughout the rest of the month it has pretty much remained there. And we have had this bestseller tag in the UK, so each marketplace has its own bestseller ranks, so they all have their own best-selling books in each category. So it's just a bestseller in the UK. It's been sitting at about 4,000 or so out of every single book on the UK market, which is high enough for it to finally get this orange tag. And hopefully we can get a few more books with this bestseller tag in the future, because we've got a lot of books at sort of 2nd or 3rd in their category, so they're really knocking on the door of getting it as well. So now we'll break down our advertising for May 2023. And if you've watched all of these videos, you'll know that at the start we ran a very aggressive advertising strategy, where sort of more than 50% of our royalties was then reinvested into ads. And as books are on Amazon for slightly longer, you want to taper down your advertising strategy, and you can start to go for larger profit margins and start spending a little bit less, and that will show hopefully in our advertising for this month. So in the UK, which is our best marketplace, is where we make the most sales, we spent £231, earning £1,085 in sales. Of course, that's not royalties, that is overall sales of the books, with an ACOS of 21%, which is absolutely fantastic for the UK for this month, and that is far lower than what we had last month, and this is absolutely sort of ACOS that we would love to carry on in the future. Now in the US, it wasn't quite so good. We have struggled a little bit more to break into the US market, which is rare for a KDP publisher, because most people, this is where they're going to make most of their money, but we still did okay in the US this month. So here we invested $190, making $534 in sales with an ACOS of 35.7%. I will say this ACOS is slightly higher than I would like it to be, but it is hardest to advertise in the US because there is the most competition there. So your ACOS is always higher there. And we did release a few new books this month, with one specifically being targeted at the US. So of course we were running quite an aggressive ad strategy for that book, which contributed a little bit more to having a higher ACOS. But hopefully next month we can start to bring our ACOS around about to the 30% or a little bit lower. Then we come to Canada. Now of course Canada is an amazing place to advertise in. You can get some really good ACOSs. As you can see here, we invested just under $50, making $490 in sales, so almost the same as the US, with an ACOS of under 10%, which is absolutely crazy. It is really, really easy to have a good ACOS in Canada, and that is why it's so important to advertise there, because you can still make heaps of sales to Canada. Now, one thing that has slightly skewed our ACOS is I did notice we had a bulk order in Canada of about 10 books for one advertising click. So if you can see there on your advertising campaigns, it will say one order, but your sales will be like $140. So that can tell you that someone has made a bulk order. So of course that skews the ACOS. So our true ACOS, if that wasn't there, would probably be about 13 or 14%. but that's still very good. And of course, you can bank on some people occasionally making a bulk order, once or twice a month on your book, so that's going to always help your ACOS. And then finally, we have Australia, where we didn't invest that much. We invested 42 Australian dollars, making just over $400 in sales with an ACOS of 10%, which is of course fantastic. And if you've been watching my videos, you know that I preach that you should always advertise in Canada and Australia is the easiest of the lot to advertise in. It really isn't hard to have an ACOS around about the 10% mark, and you really can bid a lot more and be a lot more aggressive because there's just so little competition for the advertising bids in Australia when you compare it to the US and the UK. This brings us to our total profit. So as we saw earlier, our royalties are $1,808. Now our ad spend, including the 20% VAT, so what we've done is we've added all of the advertising costs together, converted them to US dollars, and then times by 1.2, so we can calculate the VAT added is $650, which means that our total profit for the first time is over $1,000. It's $1,158. So all in all, it was a really good month, and the results are definitely trending in the correct direction. And I'm really excited to show you our results for next month because I'm sure we're going to break the 2K barrier. Targeting $2,400, $2,500, hopefully. Sort of starting to make a big push now because Q4 is coming around the corner. We really want to get as many books out until then because that is when the big money is going to come in.